Two leaders from different worlds, Saladin and Baldwin. This is their story. Imagine a king. He was just a child when he took the throne, and when he died, he could barely show his face to the world. He could no longer feel his hands. His fingers were rotting away. His sight was fading into darkness. Yet when his enemies heard his name, they hesitated. Because he was more than a man. He was a symbol. And the man standing against him was no ordinary rival. He was the unifier of the Islamic world. The man who brought Egypt and Syria under one banner. One of the most disciplined commanders in history, Saladin. But this is not Saladin's story. This is the story of the king even he could not defeat. His name was Baldwin IV of Jerusalem. In 1161, inside the royal palace of the Kingdom of Jerusalem, a boy was born. His father, King Amalric I. His mother, Agnes of Courtenay. The kingdom was already fragile. Muslim powers were reorganizing in the east. The Crusader states distrusted one another, but no one realized the true danger was growing inside the palace itself. Baldwin's tutor, the historian and Archbishop William of Tyre, once noticed something strange. While other boys wrestled and shouted in pain, Baldwin did not react. They pricked his arm with a needle. They squeezed it. They scratched him. He felt nothing. In the Middle Ages, that meant only one thing: leprosy. Not just a disease, but social exile. A mark believed to be a curse from God. And that boy would one day be king. In 1174, his father died. Baldwin was only 13 years old, and he was now king of Jerusalem. A child, carrying a fatal illness, surrounded by a court drowning in intrigue. The nobles were divided. One faction supported his mother. Another saw opportunity in his weakness. Everyone believed they could rule through him. They were wrong. Baldwin was sharp, intelligent, politically aware beyond his years. And most importantly, he did not hide his weakness. He turned it into a weapon. To the south, a new power was rising. The man who overthrew the Fatimids in Egypt. The man who united Damascus and Aleppo. Saladin. He was patient. He did not march on Jerusalem immediately. First, he united the Muslim world because he understood the Crusaders' greatest weakness: division. Baldwin understood this too. Despite his youth, he focused on diplomacy. He negotiated temporary truces. He bought time because he knew something no one else wanted to admit. His body was failing. Saladin eventually marched with a massive army toward Jerusalem. The goal was clear: crush the sick boy king. Baldwin had roughly 300 to 400 knights. Saladin commanded thousands. His advisors urged retreat. Instead, Baldwin mounted his horse. Beside him stood the Knights Templar. Near Montgizar they met. The young king, weakened by disease, positioned himself at the front. And then he did the unthinkable: a sudden, aggressive, direct assault. Saladin was caught off guard. His army broke. He barely escaped with his life. This was not just a battle, it was a dying king defying history. His face became disfigured. He began losing fingers. He needed assistance to mount a horse. His eyesight deteriorated. His face became disfigured. He began wearing a veil. Meanwhile, political fractures deepened. Two factions emerged: those who sought peace and those who wanted war at any cost. One man in particular, Reynald of Chatillon, attacked Muslim caravans and provoked Saladin repeatedly. Baldwin knew these actions would lead to disaster. But as his body weakened, so did his authority. There was one unavoidable truth: Baldwin would never have children. Who would inherit the throne? His sister Sibylla's marriage became a political battleground. In his final years, Baldwin focused on one goal: ensuring the kingdom survived him. He crowned his young nephew Baldwin V as co-king. It was in many ways a quiet admission. My time is ending. He was only 24 years old. Leprosy had consumed him. When he died, Jerusalem still stood, but the balance he maintained did not survive him. Reynold once again provoked Saladin. A caravan was seized. The truce shattered. This time, Saladin did not forgive. In 1187, at the Battle of Hattin, the Crusader army was annihilated. That same year, Jerusalem fell. Would it have happened if Baldwin had lived? We don't know, but we do know this: while he was alive, Saladin never took Jerusalem. Baldwin was not physically strong, but he was a formidable leader. His illness did not define him. It transformed him into a symbol, one of the most tragic figures of the Middle Ages, and one of the most resilient. History does not always remember those who lived the longest. Sometimes it remembers those who endured the impossible, and the leper king of Jerusalem was endurance itself. But while Baldwin was fighting, a new power was rising. A sacred city, a city holy to three religions. Jerusalem. The year was 1099. Crusader armies stood before the walls of Jerusalem. After months of siege, the city finally fell. But this was not just a military victory. When the Crusaders entered the city, a massacre began. The streets filled with blood, homes were burned, women, children, and the elderly were killed. Historians write that tens of thousands of people died in Jerusalem that day. The city now belonged to the Crusaders, and many people believed only one thing: Jerusalem was lost forever. Years passed, then decades. For 88 long years, Jerusalem remained under Crusader control. New fortresses were built. Knights settled across the land. Reinforcements continued to arrive from Europe. To many, the reality seemed clear. Jerusalem would never be taken back. But sometimes, history changes because of a single person, a commander, a leader, a strategist, and his name was Saladin. In the year 1187, he would change the course of history. When Saladin was born, the Middle East was not ruled by a single powerful empire. Instead, the Muslim world was deeply divided. Cities were ruled independently. Syria had its own rulers. Egypt was governed separately. Iraq was under another power. And these rulers often fought each other rather than fighting the Crusaders. This division allowed the Crusader states to grow stronger. The Kingdom of Jerusalem was established. The Principality of Antioch was formed. The County of Tripoli was created. Across the region, the Crusaders built powerful castles, massive stone walls, towering fortifications, heavily armored knights. Many of these fortresses seemed nearly impossible to conquer. With constant reinforcements from Europe, the Crusader states continued to grow stronger. Gradually, people began to accept a new reality. The Crusaders were here to stay. It was in this world that a child was born in 1137 in the city of Tikrit. His name was Yusuf ibn Ayyub, but history would remember him by another name, Saladin. Saladin's childhood was not spent on battlefields. In fact, he was very different from many warriors of his time. Historians describe him as a young man interested in religion, history, and science. He had a calm personality, but his family was deeply connected to the military. His father, Najm ad-Din Ayyub, was an important political leader. His uncle Shirkuh was a famous general. Shirkuh served one of the most powerful Muslim rulers of the time, Nur ad-Din Zengi. Nur ad-Din had a clear and powerful goal: to unite the Muslim world and to drive the Crusaders out of the region. Saladin grew up in an environment where this mission was constantly discussed. Eventually, he joined his uncle Shirkuh on military campaigns, but no one at that time realized that this young man would one day change history. In the 1160s, one of the most important regions in the Middle East was Egypt. Egypt was incredibly wealthy. Thanks to the Nile River, its economy was strong and prosperous. But inside the country, chaos was growing. Palace conspiracies, rebellions, power struggles. The Crusaders quickly noticed this instability, because if Egypt could be conquered, they would gain enormous wealth and strategic power. Nur ad-Din wanted to prevent this, so he sent his most trusted general, Shirkuh. Saladin accompanied him on this expedition. For Saladin, this campaign became a powerful education. He learned how to fight, how to command armies, how to build strategies, and perhaps most importantly, he learned how dangerous politics could be. Then, in 1169, something unexpected happened. Shirkuh died. A massive power vacuum suddenly appeared in Egypt. And something surprising followed. A relatively young man, Saladin was appointed Vizier of Egypt. Many people were shocked. Some underestimated him. Others believed he would quickly lose power. But Saladin was patient, quiet, and extremely careful. First, he stabilized Egypt. He strengthened the economy. He reorganized the army. Then he made a move that would change the balance of power in the entire region. He abolished the Fatimid Caliphate in Egypt. The country was brought back into the Sunni world. This was not only a religious change, it was a massive political transformation. Because now, Egypt and Syria were slowly beginning to unite under a common cause. In 1174, Nur ad-Din Zengi died. His death created another massive power vacuum. Several leaders fought for control. But Saladin moved carefully, patiently. City by city, he expanded his influence. Damascus, Aleppo, Mosul, and many other regions. For the first time in many years, Egypt and Syria were united under a single ruler. This was terrible news for the Crusader states, because now they were no longer facing divided cities. They were facing a powerful unified state, and this state had a single objective: Jerusalem. During the 1180s, tensions continued to rise. One Crusader knight in particular caused serious problems. His name was Reynald de Chatillon. He began attacking Muslim caravans. He even threatened the pilgrimage routes to Mecca. For Saladin, this was unacceptable. War was now inevitable. Saladin began gathering a massive army. Tens of thousands of soldiers, archers, cavalry, experienced commanders. The objective was clear: destroy the Kingdom of Jerusalem. In 1187, two massive armies met. The location, the Horns of Hattin. Saladin executed a brilliant strategy. He forced the Crusader army away from water sources. Under the blazing summer sun, the Crusaders began to suffer. Hours passed. Thirst spread through the army. The heavily armored knights were burning inside their armor. Morale began to collapse. Meanwhile, Saladin's forces launched constant small attacks. Slowly, the Crusader army weakened. Then Saladin made his final move. He ordered the dry grass around the battlefield to be set on fire. Smoke spread across the Crusader lines. Thirst, exhaustion, confusion, panic. The Crusader army was collapsing. Then Saladin gave the order to attack. The battle was short, but devastating. The Crusader army was almost completely destroyed. The King of Jerusalem, Guy de Lusignan, was captured. Reynald de Chatillon was captured, and the military power of the Kingdom of Jerusalem was shattered. Jerusalem was now defenseless. After the victory at Hattin, Saladin moved quickly. City after city surrendered. Then finally, the walls of Jerusalem appeared on the horizon. In 1187, the city was besieged, but this time, history would be written differently. Unlike the massacre of 1099, Saladin did not seek revenge. The city surrendered. Many Christian inhabitants were allowed to leave safely. Others paid ransom and were freed. Women and children were protected. Even in Europe, this behavior earned Saladin great respect. He was no longer just a military commander, he had become a legend. The fall of Jerusalem shocked Europe. The Pope called for a new crusade. The most powerful kings in Europe responded. King Richard the Lionheart of England, King Philip II of France, and the Holy Roman Emperor Frederick Barbarossa. This war would become known as the Third Crusade. Richard and Saladin fought several battles. Both were brilliant commanders, yet neither side achieved a decisive victory. Eventually, an agreement was reached. Jerusalem would remain under Muslim control, but Christian pilgrims would be allowed to visit the city. In 1193, Saladin died. He left behind a powerful empire, but after his death, a surprising truth emerged. In his personal treasury, there was almost no money, because throughout his life he had given his wealth away, to soldiers, to the poor, and to those in need. Even today, centuries later, the name Saladin is remembered as one of the greatest commanders in history. Because he didn't just win battles, he didn't just conquer a city, he changed the course of history. Even as enemies, they saw something in each other that the world would never forget.